Welcome back. We have been streaming our video and happenings from North Georgia this afternoon since about 3 o'clock when President Trump landed in Rome. I'm Cindy Sexton.
And I'm Latrice Curry. The president is making a stop at the Varsity and then he's expected at Coosa Steel plant. Now we want to check in with Greg Glover, who is in Rome, Georgia, waiting for the president's arrival. Greg?
Cindy, it's a packed schedule for the president here in a short trip to Rome, Georgia. He got started about an hour late, but the program here only started about half an hour late, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. A stop at the Varsity for hot dogs and hamburgers, perhaps, and also a stop for a podcast. We've been trying all morning to figure out exactly which podcast it was. We weren't able to do it. That may be clear by now, but this morning the White House is being very vague with their answers, just local. Then he comes here to Coosa Steel in Rome, Georgia, and will speak just behind me on the stage. We're all crowded into about the northern third of this huge structure. Hundreds of supporters have shown out. If you followed politics anytime for the last decade, you know what a sea of red hats means. There's also lots of sequins out there today as well. The stage and ramp is traditional for one of these rallies, and then of course product at the back of this facility. There are about 4 or 5 of these particular big kinds of buildings on the campus here at Coosa Steel. We're interested to see what he talks about. We got an outline of the president's remarks coming up. He's going to talk about the economy, about jobs, about lower energy prices and things like that. But certainly being here in the Georgia 14th district, he cannot ignore a hot battle for that seat that was once filled by MTG, as she was known, Marjorie Taylor Greene. On the 4th of February, the president endorsed Clay Fuller. Then a few days ago aboard Air Force One, someone asked him about his upcoming trip to Rome, this one, and he said there were a lot of great candidates. As a matter of fact, there are a dozen and a half or so Republicans running for that spot. He said he's confident that whomever he endorsed would get the win. I think we have solidified with some of the speakers that we've seen earlier today, some of the signs that Clay Fuller is still the endorsed candidate from the President of the United States. So let's see if he brings that up. It's a big time here as the program gets going again behind us. I want to tell you a little bit about the music before I send it over to Grace, or back to you to send to Grace. She's going to tell you about the energy here. The music has been incredible. Everything from the Beach Boys to all 3 eras of Elvis Presley, from the 50s to the comeback special to the jumpsuit, then to Pavarotti, James Brown, a duet from Greece, and even Phantom of the Opera. So a little something for everybody here. We're keeping an eye on the podium to see just when the president gets here. Things haven't exactly tightened up yet like you expect they would when a president shows up, so he must still be minutes away. But Latrice, Cindy, will send it back to you at the desk.
They laid the foundation. There, Greg. All right, so Greg was talking about he stopped at the Varsity. We want to take a live look now at the Varsity because we are told that is where President Trump's motorcade. You see it right there with the flashing lights. You see the security detail. I'm looking for the Beast. I do not see that, but obviously that is somewhere there at the Varsity.
There's some big vehicles.
Yeah, some big vehicles there. So anyway, that is where the president is. His motorcade has just pulled in there, and I don't know if we're going to move that shot or just kind of stay on that steady shot, but that is the Varsity in Rome, Georgia there, and President Trump there at the Varsity.
Just a side note on this, when it was first announced he would visit the Varsity, we were all saying, what, there's a Varsity in Rome? And I looked it up, it was just opened less than 2 years ago.
Yeah, so there is one.
There's another reason to go to Rome, Georgia though, right?
They have a Varsity. All right, so anyway, that's where the president is right now, and you see some of that security detail, the flashing lights. So people there in Rome, Georgia at the Varsity getting a little more company there today. And earlier when I was out here, Air Force One landed. We were live streaming, and you could see the president at that time. He was leaving, getting off of Air Force One. We watched them bring the steps in and all of that, and then we watched the receiving line come up to greet him. So we've got kind of watched that whole procedure and the Beast pull up. But again, right now you're looking in Rome, Georgia at the Varsity, where Cindy just told us just recently opened up 2 years ago, because I did too, Cindy, while we were looking, and I was like, is he going to the Varsity in Atlanta? And then, so again, it's like, no, there it is in Rome, Georgia. And again, he is there, not sure whether he's getting something to eat, meeting with maybe some of his supporters, or maybe if he's just, I don't know, doing that podcast there. They still have not found out where or anything about the podcast, and hopefully we'll find out some more about that. Of course, Greg and Grace are both at Coosa Steel, where he's going to be talking about the economy, which is a big, tough issue right now for a lot of people.
Grace Kramer is standing by to tell us what she's observed. Hi, Grace.
Hey, Latrice. Hey, Cindy. We actually have a speaker right now. I believe this is U.S. Secretary Beach. So I'm going to go ahead and have you guys take a full stream of this speaker right now, and I'll hop off.
Number 2, President Trump loves his family. He makes his family work. He loves his family. President Trump loves and law enforcement and respects the military. Every rally I was at, he would have several law enforcement folks in the back, and he would take pictures with them, and he would thank them for their service. But you know what President Trump really loves? He loves capitalism. He wants you,
give me 1 second.
Kids and your grandkids to have the opportunity to pursue the American dream. And President Trump realizes government doesn't create jobs, the private sector does. But what we can do as government is create a conducive environment through tariffs and fair trade, low taxes, less regulation, an educated workforce, and infrastructure investment, both roads, bridges, and 21st century infrastructure like AI and fiber and satellites. So in the end, I want to end also on this. He's going to have several legacies. One, he's really peace in the world. That's a huge legacy of the president, number 1. Number 2, he has secured the border. There is nobody flying over the border anymore. And I was fortunate to be with him 2 weeks ago, myself and Secretary Bessent, and Michael Dell, and Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, and Nicki Minaj. And we made an announcement, and I think this is going to be a major legacy of the president. They're called Trump accounts. Trump accounts. What that Trump account will do, it'll invest in our kids, and our kids will then be invested in our country. They'll learn financial literacy, compounding interest, and investing. The Trump accounts are for kids under 18. And we're going to have a pilot program if you're born this year till 2028, December 31st of 2028. But if you have kids now that are under 18, you can open up a Trump account. All you have to do is go to trumpaccount.gov. Fill out one form. It's an IRS form called 4547. You know why it's called 4547? It's easy to remember. So what I would say is this one program, Trump accounts, it really will preserve capitalism and give every young person in our country the opportunity to pursue the American dream. So thank you for being here for President Trump. Thank you for allowing me to say a few words. Thank you for supporting our candidates, and God bless you and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Well, we just heard from Brandon Beach speak. Now, everybody in this crowd is anticipating President Donald Trump in the next 30, 45 minutes, maybe to an hour. Many people have been inside of this room at Coosa Steel Corporation for much of the day. Many of us got here before the sun even rose, before 7:30, and have been waiting in line ahead of today's speech. Now, there are hundreds of people inside of this one room. Like Greg said earlier, many people are wearing their Donald Trump gear, their merch, their red hats, things of that nature. We have heard from a few state leaders so far speak. We haven't heard from anyone else yet so far. We'll have one speaker speak for a few minutes, and then we'll go kind of back to this pause while we all anticipate President Donald Trump's arrival. Again, everybody, the mood is extremely lifted. Everybody seems very excited. I feel like the energy has continued to grow as we've been waiting. And as we get closer to that 4 o'clock hour when the president is supposed to arrive here, people are getting a lot more excited. I spoke with a few women who told me that this is not their first or second Trump rally, but rather their 60th, which I thought was just very impressive and had to ask them more questions. So a lot of different types of people here, many anticipating to see the president for the first time, some for their 7th or 8th time, but a lot of people ready to see him come up in just a few hours. For now, I'm going to go ahead and send it back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Grace Kramer. And we are all talking about District 14, House District 14, that is the center of this visit from the president. Now take a look at the part of the map that District 14 makes up. It includes all of the Georgia counties in our viewing area. Marjorie Taylor Greene left office on January 5th, 1 year before the end of her term. Early voting is underway through March 6th. Election day is March 10th. A lot of candidates are running, more than a dozen. Several have dropped out. Now here's the map, and you can see what we're talking about in our area: Dade, Coosa, Whitfield, Murray, Walker, Chattooga, Gordon, Floyd. And right there at Floyd is where Rome, Georgia is. It's right in the middle of District 14. And here are the candidates running for the seat previously held by Marjorie Taylor Greene. 13 Republicans, 3 Democrats, 1 Libertarian, and 1 Independent are on the ballot. President Trump says he will make an endorsement today, but he did make an endorsement earlier on social media. So far, more than 2,800 people in our area have voted early. On your screen is the breakdown by county. The most votes have been cast in Coosa County. Well, you have until March 6th again to vote early. You can find your voting precinct on our website.
Well, the partial government shutdown over the Department of Homeland Security oversight seems poised to drag on, with lawmakers and the White House offering no signs of a compromise. And as some federal employees are working now without pay during this shutdown, the president heads to Georgia. He's in Georgia now, talking about affordability, which has been a hot topic in elections so far this year with a struggling economy.
That after kicking off the first meeting of his Board of Peace, NBC's Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
President Trump eyeing 2 fronts today, greeting world leaders at the inaugural meeting of his Board of Peace before heading to Georgia to talk up his economic policies. The battleground visit part of a push to get on the road and boost Republicans ahead of the midterm elections.
Georgia is obviously a very important state to the president and to the Republican Party.
The president set to focus on making life more affordable, as some federal employees are now working without pay, while the Department of Homeland Security is in a shutdown over Democrats' demands to reform ICE and Border Patrol tactics.
The ball is back in the court of the White House, because they have our most recent response.
The White House calling that proposal unserious, confirming President Trump has not had recent direct discussions with Democrats, despite his saying Monday that he'd sit down with them this week.
I will, but we have to protect our law enforcement. They've done a great job.
A growing number of Democratic lawmakers now planning to boycott the president's State of the Union Tuesday and instead join a counter-programming rally. The domestic divide coming as President Trump faces concern among longtime allies that his Board of Peace could undermine the United Nations. The Vatican saying Pope Leo will not join the board, following suit with allies like the UK and France.
The United Nations has great potential. They haven't lived up to the potential, but I think they might aid us a little bit.
The board expanding from its initial purpose to reconstruct Gaza, with the White House saying member states have pledged more than $5 billion toward aid and rebuilding. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Okay, as we continue our coverage, there he is. Let's get back to Greg Glover, who's in Rome, Georgia, there, waiting for the president's arrival.
And Greg, we know this is the main part of the visit at Coosa Steel. Yes, go ahead, sorry.
Cindy, Tracy, I was going to tell you things have changed just a little bit here. Shane, I don't know if you can see it over my shoulder, but the presidential seal has been affixed to that familiar lectern with the navy blue at the top and the wood grain at the bottom. That can mean only one thing, that the President of the United States is on the way. They do that just before the arrival, and things have started to tighten up with some of the advance team members here. You may remember White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles said not long ago that the president, leading up to the midterms, was going to start doing more and more rallies. I think this would qualify as a rally with the number of people who are here, but she wanted him to get out of the Oval Office in the White House as much as once per week as we head to the midterms. Rome, Georgia just might be the latest stop in that series of rallies for this president. He's certainly trying to tout his record, and as we said before, we're going to see if he once again gets behind the candidate he's endorsed for the Georgia 14th congressional district here. But it's a holding pattern, as is the case when something like this magnitude happens, no matter the size of the city, because of all the security that has to happen, all of the sweeps that have to go on. It's a matter of getting places early and being prepared to wait for the medium. We had to station all of our gear in place early this morning and not return to it for about 4 hours while I let the dogs do what they needed to do, and just to make sure that the event is as safe as possible. But a lot of these people, as you heard Logan say, were lined up even before the sun came up this morning to make sure. There's a group of people who are wearing baseball jerseys that say Front Row Joes. It's a group of people who follow this president around the country and try to get in the front row every time they go. So I guarantee that those are some of the people Logan ran into this morning. And mission accomplished. They did get down in the front row. But we're in Rome, Georgia, awaiting the president and his remarks to see if there's any news to be made. Certainly there's news that a sitting president of the United States is in Northwest Georgia. We're live. Greg Glover, Local 3 News. Cindy, the truth back to you.
All right, Greg. Again, lots of excitement there, and that seal is affixed there, and the crowd anxiously awaiting his arrival.
Have you heard anything, Greg, about whether or not he is doing the podcast before he comes to Coosa?
That was on the original schedule. As I said, Air Force One touched down about an hour late. So I don't know if he's just going to take the time to do what he needs to do, but the podcast was on the original schedule, but they didn't say who the host was going to be. We just assumed that he was going to check those things off before he got here. We're still awaiting him. I think the presentations here with all the different speakers, you know, anytime the president comes to town, the members of their party who hold state office and who hold party office get chances to speak and try to rev up the crowd before the arrival of the principal. They started all of that about 30 minutes after they were scheduled to, if that gives you any idea of whether or not the schedule is going to stay the same or not. So we'll find out when you do, Sydney.
It's sort of a hide and wait. We'll find out.
We will. Thank you, Greg.
My pleasure.
All right, then. Well, Greg Glover is there. And before heading to Georgia, what is being called the President's Board of Peace convened for its inaugural meeting this morning. Now, representatives of at least 40 countries attended the event in Washington, D.C., although key U.S. allies were absent. During his speech, the president pointed out leaders of nations with whom he's worked to reach peace deals with. The board's focus is expected to be on the future of Gaza in the wake of the war between Israel and Hamas.
As you know, Iran is a hot spot right now, and they're meeting, and they have a good relationship with the representatives of Iran, and, you know, good talks are being had. It's proven to be, over the years, not easy to make a meaningful deal with Iran. We have to make a meaningful deal, otherwise bad things happen.
Well, again, key U.S. allies were absent from this summit amid concern that Trump may hope to challenge the United Nations with his broader ambition to use this body to help resolve global conflicts rather than the UN.
I was thinking about our conversation with Greg a little bit ago where, you know, I asked him, of course, what are they going to do about the podcast? We haven't heard anything. It reminded me of President Obama's trip to Volkswagen.
Right.
We were there inside the plant. Actually, we were in the plant, sent outside of the plant,
and then
brought back in. It was a lot of waiting and no answers to any of our questions until he actually arrived. This is all probably Secret Service protocol.
Right,
because
because
to keep everybody in the dark.
Right, and to keep the president safe,
Sure,
of course, a lot of
course.
times. So, you know, they're not going to give us that step by step.
No.
He's here now, and he'll be turning and making a right turn here next. But again, so they're waiting, and those who are there obviously are his supporters, so they're going to anxiously wait and sit there patiently until he gets there.
I do think when Greg mentioned the seal being up there, that is a sign that perhaps they've changed the schedule a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
He will be coming.
Because, like you said, with that seal, he's the next one to speak.
Yeah.
All right, stay with us. We have more coming up.